who earned her PhD also in mind-body medicine at Saybrook University. Currently, she's a wellness specialist for the United States Capitol Police. She previously served as wellness coordinator for the Department of Defense at a program for active duty military with traumatic brain injury. She has spent the majority of her career providing mind-body therapy services to veterans and military personnel, but most recently has been providing trauma-informed care to law enforcement. She holds a master's degrees in psychology and dance movement therapy. She is a registered yoga teacher with one very, very famous yoga client, our past president, Barack Obama, and is a board
True.
certified dance and movement therapist. So, Allison, please take it away. We're looking forward to your presentation as well.
All right. Thank you, Don. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. Okay. Let me pull up my presentation here. And let's see. Oh, that is not, hang on, not in the right spot here. Let's see. All right. I think we're good now. Um, Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Um, yes, I did practice yoga with Barack Obama once in a lifetime opportunity. And thank you for bringing up that memory, Don. I'm going to talk to you today about my dissertation, but mostly about how I've applied the lessons of my dissertation um, in my career since I graduated from Saybrook in 2019. Um, I have been a federal employee for almost 17 years now, and I for most of my career, it's been with military and veterans. But in the last almost 4 years now, I've been working with the Capitol Police with law enforcement. Um, so lots of overlap in those populations, but definitely some differences as well. And I'm just gonna, just give you some examples of how the lessons of the dissertation really kind of showed up in the work that I have done with these first responder populations. So, all right. The title of my dissertation was Embodied Warrior Wellness, Dance Movement Therapy-Based Mind-Body Medicine in an Integrative Medicine Treatment Program for Military Members with Traumatic Brain Injury. And so the picture that you see up on your screen came out of the dissertation work. There happened to be, well, it's an annual contest called Dance Your Dissertation, and I kind of became aware of it as I was doing the work of my dissertation, and actually choreographed and performed a dance, which I submitted into the contest. I didn't win, but that wasn't the point. So the picture that you see there was a screenshot from that video of the dance, and that was the space that I worked in with the clientele and the ultimately the participants in my study. Okay. Just a little bit about the where I did the dissertation work. So the National Intrepid Center of Excellence is an integrative treatment program for active duty with with a traumatic brain injury. It's located on the campus of the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. My role there was as a wellness coordinator, and it was integrative, um, an integrated program, that was already in place before I got there. The portion that I was mostly responsible for was um, mind body practices, and really setting up a program um, for the clients, for the patients, that gave them the opportunity to learn and practice mind body skills. So it was really a perfect alignment of what I was learning about, what I was researching at Saybrook, but also doing in my work with the patients who were there at Walter Reed at NICO, called it NICO. And that is actually the room that I got to lead Barack Obama through one sun salutation. Uh, so just for a little bit of context, um, let's go to the next slide here. Okay, so I'm gonna just these bullet points are just some specific things from the dissertation that I pulled out that do end up showing up at other places in my career. So I want to kind of just focus in on these different specific pieces of the dissertation, and then just kind of show to you where it showed up, other places it showed up. Okay. Um, so as I mentioned, the program that I was the practitioner at, but also was studying for my research, was an integrated medicine program for military service members with TBI. Okay. Um, I used a holistic case study design because that seemed like the best way to capture all of the nuances of the program. So it wasn't just my mind body skill portion of the program that these clients were moving through, but there was also physical therapy and art and music therapy and speech language pathology. And so it was a whole there were many modalities and many therapies that were involved. So the holistic case study design was meant to really kind of capture um, that the many nuances of that program. I used several data sources. There were patient questionnaires, which were actually already in place, but there was both quantitative and qualitative data that I could pull from that. I had to go through military IRB as well as Saybrook IRB, so that was a fun process. It took a little while, but I got there. Um, so I had that bit of data. I also created a survey that was meant for providers and staff at the program. And then I also did a lot of personal observation and assessment. You saw the image from the dance. That was definitely part of the process. And it was important that I was doing a lot of personal reflection because not only was I the researcher, but I was also a practitioner in this program. So important to really try to, you know, set some boundaries on that and really, really look at how much I might be influencing the outcome of my findings. Um, and then, um, yeah, so it just there were several things that I was pulling from, and there were also just some um, the literature and the different kind of information that the NICO put out about their program. I would pull from that as well. So few different data sources that I used. All right. Hang on one second here. Okay. Next, I used both thematic analysis and descriptive stats. One of the as for the thematic analysis, I had a lot of qualitative data, particularly from the patients. I think I had like over 500 questionnaires to go through, and and there was a lot of just handwritten responses to questions about sort of their understanding of mind-body medicine and what they um, um, how they use it in their own experience, kind of, et cetera, et cetera. I don't need to get into all the details of that, but I went through and searched keywords and phrases, and kind of looked for themes that way. Um, so that was part of the process as well. And then I used a few different analytic frameworks. The tenets of integrative medicine that I took from the Bravewell Collaborative. I really used that as a foundation. I used Laban movement analysis to not only analyze um, like physical movement, but the movement of people's words, how it changed, because I all these patients were there for a month, so I had data for over a month's period to look at as well. And then I used a art-based analysis as well. One of my um, uh, committee members, Stephanie Lindsay, that was actually, I gotta give her a shout out. It was her protocol. And I used that as well because my approach was dance movement therapy based. So made sense to use an art-based approach. So that just kind of gives you an idea of all of the moving pieces as I was collecting and analyzing um, data. Um, some after all of that, some of the key findings was the importance of supportive leadership. Um, that one in particular definitely came up for me, as you'll see in a moment here. It trickles from the top down. If not support from the top, then it's makes it difficult for a program like this to really truly be integrated, and especially in the military. It's they're very there are very specific and rigid rules in the military for good reason. So there sometimes can be difficulty bringing in more the kind of quote softer sciences, even if they are effective. Um, the importance of interoceptive awareness that came up in a lot of different places in my findings. And then also just an understanding of integrative medicine, what integrative medicine is, what are the components of it. All those things came up as themes, really important themes for the success of an integrative um, medicine program like this. And then one of the recommendations that came up that was always just really important to me was about introducing my body skills early in the military career. Um, Time and time again, I had patients saying, "Man, I wish I had this stuff during basic training, the beginning of my career." So when I was at Walter Reed, I was getting people maybe mid-career, but a little bit more toward the end. Most of them were going back to their jobs after going through treatment, but I heard that time and time again, and it definitely came up as a theme in the research as well. And so I just always kind of had this thing like, God, I wish there was a way that I could kind of bring this work earlier into people's careers. Um, so um, Here's the first example of sort of what came up after the dissertation, after graduation. This was a chapter that I co-wrote with a colleague of mine. Her name's Liz Freeman. She's also a dance movement therapist. She was actually my intern, and she's still working at the NICO. And yeah, we got to co-write this chapter. I drew a lot of, I refed my own research in the chapter because it was all about dance movement therapy with active duty and veteran military populations. We talked a lot about the history of dance with military and veteran cultures. It's there, big time. Um, we talked a lot about the importance of interoception for managing trauma symptoms. So again, that interoceptive awareness was something that came up as a theme in my research, and we there was some talk about the importance of family support, um, and there was a case study discussed in that chapter as well. So we sort of brought both of our experiences with clients and brought it together in this chapter. So um, the dissertation really kind of helped set me up, and I was like ready to go for the chapter. So that was a very cool experience. And then the pictures are just that was after we had finished writing everything and we had a processing session. And of course, we decided to dance our process rather than talk about it. Why would we want to talk about it? Got to move it, got to dance it. So those are again some screenshots from that. You can see it was pretty joyful, pretty joyful. And then uh, on January 6th, 2021, there was an insurrection at the United States Capitol. I was still at Walter Reed at that point. I watched TV with a lot of other people. My husband had actually just driven into work in DC, but he was okay. Um, and so, I think like for a lot of people, it was pretty disconcerting to see those images and see what was happening. Few months down the road, I saw a job opening for a wellness specialist for the Capitol Police, and it was directly because of what happened on January 6th. They did not have much of a wellness program in place, and it was such a massive collective trauma, and they didn't have the resources in place. So thankfully, they decided that they needed to build a wellness program. So I was one of the first to arrive. I got there in February of 2022. And it's called the Howard C. Liebengood Center for Wellness. Howie Liebengood actually died by suicide a couple days after January 6th. He took his own life. Howie's story is really interesting and worth reading up on. So if you ever have a chance, look him up. He was, he's very missed by many. Let's see. I'm going to take a sip of water to hydrate. One moment. Okay. So when arriving there, it was basically I had to build it, start a program from the ground up. So those elements of integrative medicine that I talked about before that were such an important part, such a foundation of the research that I did, became really important here. I already had a really solid sense of like what needs to be part of a wellness program, and this is not for military, but for a first responder population. It's dealt with some traumas very similar to what the military deal with. So that again really set me up for success. We had to do a lot of needs assessment, and so the survey that I had created for my dissertation again helped me quite a bit. I sort of already had an idea of the questions I needed to ask for the needs assessment, and yeah, it just like pretty immediately those things, I got to put those things into play. Okay, just keeping track of the time here. Um, Now, just like the military, in law enforcement, in first responder populations, um, mind body medicine and the various practices incorporated in body medicine, there's a lot of stigma around that just the idea of asking for help or taking care of yourself. It's always about taking care of everybody else before yourself. The idea of taking care of yourself is often looked at as selfish. Um, this attitude is changing in the military, and wellness in law enforcement is starting to become more of a thing, more of a realization that, like, yeah, we need to be taking care of our office. You've probably heard about the military suicide rate. It's very similar in law enforcement. Um, the lifespan for law enforcement officers is it's like 57 years old. It's something insane like that. It's just and it's because they're under such insane stress for so long that by the time they get to retirement, they've just really done a number on their nervous systems. So important for mind-body practices in law enforcement. The picture on the left is me and my coworker, Alex Arbogast. She also was at Walter Reed with me, and we both left and went to the Capitol Police together. And so there we are doing a little dancer pose in front of the Capitol. And then the picture to the right is our colleague, Officer Albanese. He will tell you, he tells everybody, he's like, if you had come to me even a couple years ago and said that I was going to be practicing yoga and doing breathing techniques and practicing mindfulness, I would have told you were crazy. But there he is in Warrior 2, the Capitol in the background, and he's one of the biggest proponents of these practices. And he's also our peer support lead. So helps to have somebody on the sworn side, and he's not the only one, but to have people that are sworn actually advocating for these practices. All right. Let's keep moving along here. Okay, so other ways that that this stuff has shown up in the work. Um, Yoga for First Responders is an organization that I went through their week-long training, and it really goes back to the very basics of yoga. Yoga was originally for warriors. It was for cultivating the warrior mindset. And so the picture on the left there is of me in I'm gas mask. I have a blindfold on, and I'm listening to the yoga teacher and following her instruction to move through the yoga asanas. Um, that was our tactical training day. The whole idea is that if you can manage, if you can maintain your breath, if you can manage your nervous system, um, then you can, and you can do it during these tactical situations where there's stress purposely, um, or maybe you're purposely putting some stress on yourself, but in a, controlled environment, um, then you can pretty much do anything. So it's practicing tactical wellness, tactical breathing. Um, you know, in the picture to the right, where I'm actually on the bottom right, I'm actually on the firearms range. In the background are a few of our recruits, and we are practicing um, three breath. We're practicing diaphragmatic breathing. We're practicing using our breath to manage our stress response so that they can perform optimally on the day that they're qualifying. That they're on the that they're on the gun range. So these are just some examples of how this stuff can really be integrated with this population. Now, I mentioned the recruits too. Here is where my want and my need to work with people at the beginning of their careers has come to fruition. So one of the things that has happened in the building of this program is that we have 3 full days of wellness with the recruits, their very first week of the academy. And then there are several touch points throughout the rest of the academy and that week on the gun range is one of them where we get to practice tactical breathing with them and I keep hearing time and time again from the instructors that they can tell it makes a difference when they actually take that time to self-regulate before they step foot onto the range. They're much more accurate, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. Okay. I know we're just about at the end here, so let me wrap up. So here is I wrote the dancer in all of us because that was my dedication at the beginning of my dissertation, dedicated to the dancer in all of us, because dance has really been the thread through all of this for me, through the research, the data collection and analysis, how it's showing up in my work, after the dissertation, after graduation. That picture on the left, that is at a conference. It's at a wellness conference with the International Association of Chiefs of Police. They actually asked me to come in as a dance movement therapist and do a movement activity. And so those are all the people that showed up to participate in it, and they're all law enforcement or involved in law enforcement some way. And then the picture to the right, that is some of my team, including Leo. That's one of our wellness dogs there. And that is the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation, or ICISF. That was their conference. And they asked us to come in and talk about our program and what we do, because now we're at a point where everyone else is like, we want to do what you're doing. So that's where we're at now. And I'm going to end with this last picture. That's me and my kiddos. They're actually a lot bigger than that now. That was maybe 3 years ago now. But that was the Police Week 5K that they've run with me since then too. But that's it. I'm gonna stop right there and see if there are